Good morning and welcome. Welcome, my name is Doretha Juarez. I'm one of the 8 counselors, and just about everybody is here over in the side. Mrs. Juliana Gallant is our director, and then we have Miss Kaylee Bryden and Janet Svolos, Ingrid Baum, Daniel Johnson, and Scott Borchers in the back. We welcome you. We're so glad that you're here to join us as we talk about moving up and moving on, kind of going through the different grade levels and identifying what's going on right now, and kind of the segue as we move into the end of the year and into the beginning of the new year. So next week, counselors are going to be going into every student's, except the seniors, English classes. And we're going to be doing a presentation with them. We're going to have them open their computer. We're going to go over their course requests. And we actually have them work on it while we're in the room with them. We give them the electives and we give them different options and things like that. They have to sign up for what they qualify for right now. So if, for example, a student has to appeal for a class because maybe their percentage was a little bit low, they'll have to actually put in the one they qualify for at this point, and then once the appeal goes through and whatnot, they'll be placed in the appropriate class in due time. Students have until April 11th, so they have about a month or so to make these final decisions, and April 11th at 4 p.m. is when the course requests are closed. And we certainly want you, parents, to be a part of this process with your students. Your students are talking to their counselors about their courses, and hopefully, you can also, of course, be part of that conversation. We'd like our students to challenge themselves. I'm talking to juniors right now, and for example, a young man yesterday who got excellent grades in the first semester. He never took an honors or an AP class, and he's so excited because now he does qualify for a couple of AP classes, and he's up for the challenge. So as long as, always mental health, always balance is the primary, that's always our primary priority. But we certainly want students to challenge themselves, and colleges like to see the maintenance or increase in rigor of students' classes. So once your students have the presentation next week, it's going to be on Tuesday and Wednesday in their English classes. That's going to be a really great time for you to chime in and talk to them about their course selections. As of yesterday, the updated course description guide is available for you online on the Chaminade website. There are some new courses, and as we're talking with our students, we're certainly bringing those new courses to their attention. And what's really, I think, most helpful about the course description guide is all the prerequisites. And of course, course descriptions are included. So you can see the prereq. For example, for some science classes, students have to realize that their math grade is the prerequisite, and perhaps a science grade also from a prior course. So it's very clear, and you can see for 11th and 12th grade, for 12th grade students, exactly what the prerequisites are. And that's just on the Chaminade website. Very easy to see on the left. We wanted to be sure that you know that we monitor our students' courses. We make sure that our students are taking the required courses. Of course, when you look on Naviance, you can see where they are, and you can see courses they've taken, courses that they need to take. But we kind of established, this is a partial view of our Chaminade College Prep graduation checklist. The department put this together, and we very carefully go through your students' transcripts, and in our discussions with them, we want to make sure that they have their 2 PE courses if they don't have a sport, for example. We want to be sure that if they didn't take their 1 year of visual or performing arts as a freshman, that they definitely take it somewhere in their time here as a junior or senior, perhaps. So this kind of keeps us on track, and we use it as a guide. And something like this we wanted to bring to your attention so that it's just another step so that nothing falls through the cracks and your students do meet all of the graduation requirements. Yes?
Are you going to go over the change to expository writing and what the students are supposed to be taking now if they're tracking?
Yes, okay, so good question. This is the last year that expository composition was a required course for 10th graders. And what the English department decided to do is they decided to incorporate more writing into the into the freshman level and into the sophomore level. So they're kind of collapsing the writing. So your students, if your student is going to be a sophomore, that student may have a full year of an elective available for next year. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I have one sophomore and one freshman, so
Oh,
it's
okay.
particularly apparent to me that there's.
Exactly, exactly. They should probably each have a full year elective, possibly. I mean, their counselor will certainly help them with that. Other questions? To talk a little bit about testing, we always say in our department, we always bring to your attention that we don't want students to get burnt out. Probably for ninth graders, test prep is too soon. Really, the best way for students to prep for their tests is to do well in their classes and to challenge themselves in their classes, because that's where they're getting the content. Right? When we say test prep, those are little classes maybe a couple of months before the test that talk about techniques and how to be faster and things like that. But we definitely don't want students to start too early. Sophomores who are taking like AP World History, for example, they may want to take a subject test this June, right, once the material is fresh in their minds. So subject tests are, in the particular areas, content areas, and then of course there's the ACT and the SAT. Some 10th graders, if they have the time, or maybe toward the summer, they may want to do some practice by themselves online. They can use a Shmoop or Khan Academy. They may want to take an ACT, a practice ACT, and another practice SAT and see which one they're more comfortable with. But we definitely don't want them to burn out too early on this. Typically juniors are registering and getting ready to take their ACT and SAT about now. And they will have time, There are summer tests available now, and early in the fall, senior year, they can still take very early in the fall if they needed to, buck up their scores a bit and do some more prepping in the summer before senior year, they could do that. Yes?
You're talking about actually taking the test, right? How about prep classes? Like, is it sophomore summer, the summer after sophomore year, to kind of take SAT prep?
I mean, they could if they're very eager to. We have right now, we have running some SAT prep classes here for juniors only. So there was one that is, I think it's either finished or it's just about finishing, and then another one starts in preparation for the June test. So this is the time typically when juniors are prepping for the ACT, SAT. Yeah.
Most kids typically take both, because I'm
We
from
do.
back east, so we only took SATs.
Yeah, it's to a certain degree, it is regional
Yeah.
as far as, which ones are more popular. SAT is the more popular one here.
Okay.
We do ask students to try both, to see which one they're more comfortable with. And like I said, they can do that in practice form for free online. The ACT tends to go a little bit faster, so if a student needs to take his or her time on a test, maybe the SAT would work better. But that's really up for them to decide as they prep. That's a perfect thing to do in
But
preparation.
in terms of like colleges, do they care?
No.
They just one or the other?
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay, we'll talk a little bit about AP limits and the capstone program. So a Chaminade student can take a maximum of 9 APs. Maximum of 9 APs. There are not none are available for freshmen. We don't have any AP classes for freshmen. There are honors classes, but not AP. The first time a student can take an AP course is in his or her sophomore year. And there are not too many available. There's AP World History. There may be an AP Computer class. What is it called?
Computer science.
It has a new name.
New one this year. I think it's the AP computer program. It's hot off the press.
Hot off the press, yeah. And there's the AP Capstone program, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. Okay, so there's 9 cap. By the end of sophomore year, a student may have taken 2. Okay, the few that they qualify for sophomores. By the end of junior year, a student may have taken 5. And then by the end of, so that means, let's say they took 2 as a sophomore, they may take the max of 3 as a junior, and then they can take 4 as a senior if they're going for the 9. If a student took 1 AP class as a sophomore, he or she may, for the 9 cap, take 4 as a junior and 4 as a senior. Okay, so it has to equal 9, 2 max, 5 max at the end of junior year, and then 9 max at the end of senior year.
So, I missed, he said,
think there were more like 3 options. There's AP World History, there's an AP Computer course, and there's the AP Capstone program, which I haven't gotten into yet. I'll get to that in a moment. Many more options in AP for juniors and seniors.
Why is that? I mean, what if the child doesn't want to take the computer programming, he's more into some other field?
He or she definitely has room in the schedule in junior or senior year. So oftentimes what students will do is they'll double up, they'll take like AP Chem and AP Bio as a junior, and they have room in their schedule to do that. Yes?
What happens, I had a situation, my then rising freshman thought he was gonna qualify for an AP at the time the scheduling was done, but by the end, when the grades finally came in, he had missed the math by like a point.
Yes.
And was there anything he could have done at that point? He tried and said, and was told that there was nothing he
Right,
could do.
we base the placement on the grades from the first semester. So in the first semester, if a student doesn't quite make the mark, he or she can appeal. There's not an appeals process right now for if they didn't make the mark in spring, but there's talk of it. There's talk of it, but it's not there yet. A student can't appeal in the spring. So whatever grade that the student gets, he'll be placed accordingly.
Can you elaborate on that? If you have to appeal, do you go to your teacher?
It's a process. When the counselors go into the students' classrooms next week, we're also going to explain the appeals process. There's a form, and they have to explain why they'd like to take the course. Maybe if they need to get a 92 and they have a 90, they can explain why they didn't get the 92.
You had
Maybe
mock trial and you won the whole thing, and then
Yeah.
you had all these early outs for varsity field hockey, so you got a 91.
Exactly. Right. So there's room there for them to explain.
So who makes the final decision?
It goes before the department. So if they're appealing for, let's say, an AP or an honors math class, it goes before the math department. And depending on what grade the student is in, they will have had a few math teachers by then, perhaps, so that math teachers can give their input. And oftentimes, not every time, but oftentimes what the appeal comes back is, if you meet the requirement for spring, in other words, if you get the 92 in spring, that's the condition, typically.
Do the teachers weigh in on that?
Yes.
So the teacher the student currently has should write a letter of rec?
No, it's more like a meeting. I was the English department chair for quite a few years, and the way that
This
we
is for
ran it-
history.
Or history, we all sat together and we bring up the student, we read the appeal, and if any teachers have input about the great work ethic of that student, et cetera, that's how it works.
So I'm not gonna take up any more time. I've had kids go through here and I actually didn't know that. So where does somebody, this is my third, where does somebody access that? You know, my daughter got an A in the class, I just assumed. So where do you find that information? Like, cause she's gonna be a junior, like I need to know what
The
you have
appeals
to-
process?
No, like, I didn't know there was such a thing. If you don't get an A, you don't advance.
So in
No,
our,
no, not quite.
It's an interesting thing, quite
no,
frankly.
it's, in
She's
our
never gotten a
classes-
B at your school, so I don't get why you wouldn't advance.
Cause so the departments, determine the prerequisites for the class, and oftentimes it's like a 92.
But where do I
with-
access that?
In the course description guide.
So it's an online thing again.
It
We don't
is.
have a piece of paper that says,
I mean, we all print it in our office and
Okay.
have it in front of us to show
Okay.
our students constantly. You know, they get very ragged by the end, but yeah, it's online initially and then, so. I wanted to also go back and tell you it's AP Computer Science A and AP Computer Science Principles, so we're trying to run 2. But of course, classes run based on interest, so these don't always run. In addition, AP Human Geography will be offered to sophomores if it runs. So those are the APs for sophomores. But
Wow.
the appeal process, I would say the part that your child has the control over when they write their appeal is there is a little box where they can explain why they didn't reach the 92% in that semester. And so take that seriously. Some kids write just a sentence really quick. But then, you know, when it goes before the department, you know, they're reading this and weighing in, you know, on their own experience with the student, but also the student's explanation about why they feel like they should be, that they're able to do that class. Because again, this is not punitive at all, even though it might feel that way. It's about setting them up for success. Okay, sorry.
Sure. You can get an A
Well, when we say get an A, it kind of depends, again, back to the course description guide, some classes want the 90%, so that's an A. Some want the 92, it depends on the department,
Okay.
yeah, in the first semester. And then if that student, typically, like I was saying, the appeal, if it's honored, will say you need to reach the 90 or the 92 in the spring. And if they don't, they'll be placed in the college prep class, as opposed to the honors.
My question is, if they fully qualified first semester, but somehow second semester
Right.
they don't, does that affect the decision?
Yeah, they get
does.
taken out.
Okay.
Okay. To go a little bit, oh, by the way, on March 12th at 7 p.m., there's going to be an information meeting about AP and honors courses. And on March 12th, next Tuesday at 7:30 p.m., there's going to be an information meeting about the AP Capstone program, which I'll go into a little bit here. So we're in the second year of the AP Capstone program here at Chaminade. It is a 2-year commitment program. It's for rising sophomores and rising juniors. So a student, if he or she is interested, may take it sophomore and junior year or junior and senior year. When we counsel our students about taking this program, we ask them, do you love to research? Do you love to work in groups? Do you love to work independently? And do you love to write? Okay, so those are kind of like the 4 criteria that we use. And you know, sometimes a student will say, well, I love research, but I can't stand writing. It probably wouldn't be a great program for that student. The first year is called AP Seminar. And in AP Seminar, the students are working a lot of the time in groups. By the end of that first year, they take the AP test for the capstone program. They're working in groups, they're doing research, they're choosing topics of interest to them, a lot of argumentation, a lot of writing practice. In the second year, it's a much more independent year, where the student is spending really most of the year working on a research project, typically in the topic of their choice. There are mentors involved helping the students. There's no test, no AP test at the end of the second year. That takes place at the end of the first year. We have 2 or 3 sections have been running over the last 2 years. So now we have AP Seminar, a couple of sections, and we have AP Research, a few sections. Okay, if a student goes through those 2 years, he or she will receive the AP Capstone certificate. And if in addition to that AP program, they take another series of classes, either 3 or 4, they get an AP Capstone diploma. So it is something to go on their resume, to go in their profile, that looks like, and it's rigorous, and it may have them stand apart a little bit because it is a new program, it's a vibrant program, and it's a rigorous program for students. And like I said, the information meeting will be run next Tuesday at 7:30 here in the Condon Center. Mrs. Gallant is going to talk to you about the college visit.
So I want to go back to AP limits really quick, just to make sure that you understand kind of the reason behind it. You know, we are very much about helping students keep balance and, you know, mental health and sleep and eat and all those things, and have fun with their friends in addition to taking APs. And many years ago, when some of us were on a college tour up north, you know, Stanford, we were at Stanford actually, said, you know, we're getting kids here and they're kind of burnt out after being in high school and it's so rigorous and they're burnt out, you know, and so, you know, we said, well, that's kind of because from the top down, you have these expectations of our students and we want to help them get into these schools that they have their heart set on. And so they said, then limit them. If you limit them, we can't hold it against them. So limit their APs. So that's where this came from, just so you know. Because sometimes we hear kids in our office saying, you know, well, my friends at so-and-so school can take 6. And we purposely did this for our students' mental health and well-being, knowing that they can't be dinged for it, because if the school says you can't take 5, then you can't take 5. So that's why. Yeah.
How do the colleges know that?
We send with their transcript, we send a profile that explains our grading system, what classes we give point bumps for, how many honors, APs, and in there it specifically says that we don't allow them to take more than this number of APs. And then on the UCs, we have the students actually put it in as one of their writing prompts as well.
Do you have any plans in the future to limit them more? Because I know there's a little bit of a trend to actually cut back on the amount of APs
Right.
altogether to eliminate.
Within our office, we've had preliminary talks about that, because, yes, there's a lot of high-end high schools are actually getting rid of their AP programs altogether, believe it or not. So, you know, there's always trends, and we're always trying to keep up with that and still keep, you know, Chaminade the school that everyone wants it to be. So, yeah, absolutely, we're aware of that, but we've really only talked about it within our office so far.
So, after that you had a talk at the Stanford, did you see any change of pattern of how many students are being accepted at these qualified and
Yeah, we still have the same.
the same number,
Yeah.
nothing changed?
No.
In terms of getting more or less?
No, no. I think that our students do a better, and then we need to move on, but I think our students do a better job now of being open-minded about the 3,600 schools in the nation that are available to them, and not necessarily getting caught up in, you know, a bumper sticker school. So we have a wider variety of schools that kids are getting into and going to now than when I first started here. But we still have kids getting into the high-end schools every year. So let's talk about the college visit. And along the same lines about finding fit and, you know, maybe straying away from the bumper sticker schools, it's really important that, you know, as a family, you recognize that this next chapter in their lives is, you know, you finding their next home for 4 to 6 years sometimes. It's really great to start incorporating it as part of the culture in your family, not necessarily as a pressure cooker thing, but especially with the younger grades, with sophomores and freshmen. You know, when you're on a vacation and you find out that there's a school nearby, you know, just schedule a visit. It's very easy. You can do it online most of the time. And if you're too late, you know, if you're taking a last-minute vacation or you recognize that you're going and you forgot to make an appointment, schools will always say, if you can't do the tour, we have self-guided tours that you can pick up like a map and go around. So they want you on campus too. But it's a great opportunity for students to see if they have the programs they think they'd be interested, the activities they think they'd be interested in, and just if the energy feels good. I was just telling a mom before we started that I got to go on the Cal-Lu and UC Santa Barbara tour this week with some of our students, and Cal-Lu surprised them. They loved it, and we got to eat in their cafeteria, and the cafeteria has like warm chocolate chip cookies every day and soft serve ice cream, and they were really, really excited about all of this, you know, and all of this plays into their decisions. So, and they were asking great questions. They were asking, you know, how many students live on campus versus commute, and what are the weekends like? And our tour guide was a student, and she was very honest. So getting on campus and seeing those fields, and then when we got back on the bus before we took off to UC Santa Barbara, I said to the students in the bus, okay, so now you saw a small private school. When you go to Santa Barbara, look at this as a big public school and weigh the differences. So even if you don't go to one of those two schools, even if those two schools don't make your list, you start to get an idea of what you want. And at Santa Barbara, they had a disadvantage because it was raining on us, but they didn't feel that vibrant, like, you know, getting run over by bicycles and all of those things that's usually happening when you're visiting Santa Barbara. But they did, you know, they did hear the number of clubs that was different and the different opportunities, but the class size is different, all of those things. Speaking of that, we host college tours. That college tour was specifically for juniors, but based on the survey results of the parent survey I sent out first semester, the Northwest and the Northeast were the places that parents wanted to see their students visit next. So tentatively, we're going to do the Northeast in the fall and the Northwest in the spring. The fall's always open to sophomore, junior, seniors. We don't want to overwhelm freshmen at that point. And then the spring one is open to 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. In full disclosure, not very many 9th graders go, but they're welcome. And then we don't take seniors because by then they're starting to get their acceptance letters.
How many days of school do you miss if you take the fall one?
That one is usually a whole week, because we usually do travel day on Sunday, and usually we're still visiting schools the following Saturday.
And there's no interest in going over spring break? Because we're taking our daughter, like, we would love you guys to do a spring break trip.
Well, that's another thing that we've discussed, but there's also mixed feelings about that. What we've been trying to do for the last couple of years is pick a week where the students already have at least one day off that week, so that there's a little bit of a balance. They're not missing 5 days, but they're also not missing a whole week of their vacation, because we've also had families say, you know, this is the only time we get to spend time with our kids. Yes.
Do you feel it's advantageous to wait to see where they get in? Or do you think prior, just because if there's a specific school they really want and they don't get in? Or do you think it's better prior to?
Yeah. You know, for many families, including mine, you know, finances are an issue. So I guess in the best case scenario, because it is their home for the next 4 years, it's great for them to visit in advance. Because, well, for example, on one of the Northeast tours that I went on, I had a girl going on that tour saying, you know, Yale is my dream school, and I can't wait to see Yale, and Yale, 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 Yale. All week it was Yale, and I think we went to Yale on day 4, and she was like, this is not what I thought it was going to be at all. For some reason, like, I loved Yale, we loved Yale, but for some reason that fell off her list. So I think for that reason it's nice if you have an opportunity, but because not everyone can fly all over, and especially a lot of times students are starting with a list of 36 schools. You know, a lot of companies do really cool virtual tours online and things like that. But the other thing about visiting the campus is that it shows demonstrated interest. So when you're on the campus and you fill out the little form that says you were there and went on the tour, that goes into your file and it shows demonstrated interest. But just a little plug for us, for what we do here, the lunchtime visits also show demonstrated interest, and they're a lot cheaper. When students come to lunch, they fill out the same exact forms, and it does start a file as well.
And you can only do that as a junior, right?
It's
Because
second
my daughter
lunch.
wanted to go this
It's
year,
second
and they were
lunch,
like,
so-
she's like, I can't go.
Yeah, there's some sophomores who have second lunch and go, but it's primarily juniors and seniors. A lot of seniors go as well because they're still deciding. In addition, you know, especially if they're going to do early decision, which that's a whole other thing, and we won't get into that now, but colleges when students are applying early decision, meaning that if they get in, it's binding, colleges want to know they've been there, because they want to know that they really are ready to commit to this school.
Okay.
So those are just little caveats. In the summer, what can you do? Obviously, we want them to be having family time with you, some downtime. These 10 months are very, very busy for all of you all. So having family time is great. And remediating classes. Students who get deficiencies, D's and F's, they start to feel like, oh, it's over for me. Like, I can never go to college. I'm not going to amount to anything. That's not at all true. But they want to be remediating and keeping all their doors open. And that's kind of what we describe to them. The more you keep your doors open, the more you remediate those grades, you know, the better off you are when it comes time to apply. Because there are colleges who actually replace the grades. So if they got a D in a math class freshman year, first semester, and they go in the summer and get a B, some schools will replace that, and it will be as if they got a B to begin with. So that's something to just keep in mind. Internships. A lot of our students, and if you came to the one with the students who spoke, the College and Coffee, where the students spoke about summer internships, a lot of times if the student has an interest in something, they'll go on to, you know, Northridge or UCLA's websites and look for professors that are doing research in that area. But also, you know, a lot of times internships come from family friends. You know, I think I want to be a lawyer. I know, you know, my mom has a friend who's a lawyer. I'm going to see if I can work in that office this summer. Then there's, I talked about research volunteering. we require volunteer hours. But, you know, kids really kind of need to start thinking about what is the 2 things that they're gonna focus on in high school, that they're gonna show commitment and leadership in. And if volunteering is one of them, then they need to be showing that they're doing far more hours than what we require, because colleges ask us, how many do you require? So if a student says, I am amazing at volunteering, I did 15 hours as a freshman and 15 hours as a sophomore, they know that they had to do that. So if volunteering is gonna be your child's thing, then they should be doing a lot of it over the summer as well. And then there's lots of summer programs. Ms. Juarez does a good job of sending out emails and putting them on your students' Blackboard. And when we get information about summer opportunities, there's been a lot of hospital ones that have come through. There's been a lot of colleges that have programs on their campus, and they like that because then they can have students come on and check it out and see if they would like their campus. Some of them give credit, college credit, which is a win-win. So if they're gonna go to Berkeley and do a program over the summer, you know, on the one hand, they're checking out Berkeley to see if they would really like it, but on the other hand, they're getting ahead already. They're taking 1 or 2 classes that are worth 3 units each, and those can be applied when they apply to college. And then in a similar vein, a lot of our students do community college over the summer. That's the same thing. So it's also very inexpensive. I want to say it's free. My son did it last year, and I don't think I paid at all when they're high school students. But if it's not free, it's very inexpensive, and that is a college course. You know, so you can take usually we want them to take something they don't offer here. We don't offer here. So we've had students take astronomy, you know, oceanography, all kinds of different things that we don't offer here, and then they get college credit for that when they apply to college. We don't transcript it on our Chaminade transcript, but when they apply to college, we send the Pierce transcript and the Chaminade transcript together so that the colleges see that they did college level work. And then the colleges on their end recalculate the GPA. So.
Just for a real quick note, all the summer programs that we like and we vet are posted on your students' counseling Blackboard page. You'll find them there.
One question. CSUN offers summer programs for high schoolers, and you get some credit. Is that counted towards college or high school credit?
We kind of have to vet that. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we went to Ms. Bryden and I went a few weeks ago to CSUN, and it looked like it would be, well, for example, if a kid needed to take a math class, it would be, it's very rare that a kid can take a math class to take the next level at Chaminade, but if a student wanted to take calculus as a senior and they weren't able to take pre-calc, maybe they could take pre-calc there in order to qualify. That would have to go through administration and the vice principal. But it looked like some of our students had done either remediation at CSUN, or they were planning to go into like honors chemistry as a sophomore, and they just took a chemistry class just to kind of get their feet wet and see how it was. So it was more like for enrichment.
I know a lot of the public school kids are taking online classes.
I know.
And so I know for them it counts, like for Canal Valley, it counts towards on, credits, and there's always that talk about, having to use too much. Do you allow online classes? Do you recommend online classes?
Again, we don't do get ahead classes
Right.
here and I know that is kind of difficult. It's a battle we have in admissions, because a lot of families who are coming from these, school districts that allow it wonder why we don't, but we really want them doing their graduation requirements at our school. So online courses, as long as they're accredited, can be something they do, again, as enrichment.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Do colleges know that though? Like I actually don't know the answer to that. Like, do colleges know that you are saying to us, we don't encourage you to take those classes?
Colleges know that we want the graduation requirements done at
Do you
Chaminade.
write that in your letter of recommendation from the, like, So for example, my daughter is gonna take AP chemistry, and then her senior year, that leaves her taking AP bio and AP physics. I highly don't agree with that. My son did it, it's brutal. So you wanna take physics in the summer or bio in the summer, but you guys won't accept it. So I struggle with that, because what you're saying is twofold. We're trying to make it easier for the kid, but hey, you gotta take AP bio. If you wanna be pre-med, you guys, you gotta take
These are
AP Chem,
very
AP bio.
individual, so maybe we can talk
Yeah, but I'm
after,
just saying, like,
because that's not necessarily, what you're not talking about is not necessarily.
to get into Notre
Right.
Dame, you have to be the
I
triple
know,
threat.
But
My son
let's,
got
can we
in.
talk afterwards, only because.
Sure, I just think sometimes I don't wanna argue with you, because by the way, she's fantastic and I love her.
But I
okay?
also just wanna say that what you're talking about is not graduation requirements, what your kids have
Right,
done is
but if
over
you're
and
interested in
beyond.
pre-med, you guys don't have a program where you can separate it. It doesn't exist. My kid can't take AP Bio her sophomore year. You have to double up the APs 1 year. You admit that, right? You have to double up.
We don't have any AP sciences open to sophomores, no.
Exactly. So
So-
therefore, do the math. You have to take 3 APs over 2 years. That is a brutal schedule that you guys are putting these kids on. Oaks Christian said, we're gonna let you take it outside.
Okay.
So
And you know,
it's just,
every
it's something you
school
guys
has
should
their
talk
own-
about, because you're saying you want it to be easier for kids, but in the same sentence, you're not making it easier.
We have.
I'm happy to go talk to you.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about that separately. Our graduation requirement for science is 3 years.
Yeah, but
And they don't have.
that's
to-
not getting you into Georgetown and Notre Dame.
No, but what I'm saying is we're talking apples and oranges, cause I'm saying you have to do your graduation requirements here, and you're talking.
But
about
everyone in
something-
this room, I
Yeah,
have
but
a
at the
feeling.
same time, I gotta say, I interview for Duke. I'm a Duke grad and I interview, and there are kids who do everything
My
your
son
kid's
didn't
doing,
get
and
into
they
Duke.
don't get in.
He didn't
so
get
what,
into
what
Duke
you were
with a
saying before
35
about expanding
ACT.
expanding where you're looking, you kind of need to do that, because the bottom line is I have kids come to me and they are perfect. They
Yeah.
do everything.
My son didn't
They're
get in.
ridiculous. They don't get in.
He didn't
and so
get
it's
in.
just the
This is
numbers.
last year.
So you're either gonna kill your kid, and they may not get in
No, no, no.
anyway, or you're gonna accept like.
Understand something. A
Maybe that's
child,
not
I
right.
have a child that
You
went
know
to
what,
University of Oregon, and I have a child at USC. The child decides. The
Right.
parents in this room do not decide where your child goes. If you're doing that, that's a mistake. The child decides.
So we have to.
Child
keep
No, I know,
decides.
but I'm saying the schools, to an extent, you can do everything right, and it's still the numbers may not go your way. So
Absolutely.
it's like you don't want to kill the kids to.
But it's the
Right.
kids' choice if they want to kill themselves. And I mean that
No,
sincerely.
no, no, but, so let's
My
stop.
daughter didn't, my son
This
did.
is a marker.
It's a
Let's
choice.
stop for now.
You can't decide for
I
your
appreciate
child.
you saying that, because what I often say, for lack of better words, is, this is not a science, this is Vegas.
Yeah,
On any given,
so
on
true.
any given year,
So true.
depends on how many applicants are at that school, what they look like, valedictorians
Who
get
you're
turned
applying
away
against.
from colleges every year.
Every year.
So, that being said, we're always trying to reduce anxiety, not raise it. So we'll have these individual conversations about, but it's heartbreaking for all of us. This is a hard part of our job, because we know we have these amazing kids that we know would succeed at all of these high-end schools. And yet, they only have this many seats. That's at the end of the day, so they have to make their choices based on what they're looking for in that year. So we can suggest things, but we can never guarantee anything. So one thing that's kind of an interesting and good segue, the list. For your children to feel successful, we like the list to look like this, like a triangle, okay? With the safeties at the top and the targets in the middle. I mean, the reaches at the top and the targets in the middle, and the safeties at the bottom. Honestly, that's the best situation for your kids, because A, they're gonna get a lot of acceptances and feel awesome about themselves. B, those ones at the bottom are the ones who are gonna most likely offer you money. And we haven't talked about money, and I don't wanna talk about money, but that it's expensive. This next chapter is expensive. I heard kids on the bus the other day going to UC Santa Barbara, and they were saying, well, my parents said that if, unless I get a scholarship, I can't get to this school, and I can't da-da-da-da. And I'm thinking, well, I'm grateful, actually, that parents are having that conversation with their kids, because that's the reality of the situation, And one of the worst things I saw, well, not at this school, but when I was a college counselor elsewhere, is a family who really encouraged their child to apply to USC as her dream school. It was a reach, it was up here, but she got in and they couldn't afford to send her. So, you know, being realistic with your child is actually part of the path. And I think it's important that your students know, you know, not putting more pressure on them saying you have to get this big scholarship, but saying, you know, here's what we're able to do for you. And so, you know, within those limits, go for it. They should apply everywhere, but knowing that if they don't get these dollars in financial aid, they may not be able to go.
Is there a number you suggest?
For number of
To apply to.
schools on the list, we say 8 to 12. Students don't always listen to us. That's just manageable. It's manageable financially because every application costs money, but it's also manageable in terms of just the work they have to put into it. Because being a senior and doing the application process feels like having an 8th class. And the majority of it happens for most students by November 1st or 15th. So that's a lot of stress if you're doing 26 schools. All right, so for juniors only, the one thing that you can control is your essay. And, you know, for example, the UCs, that's your written interview. They don't have letters of recommendation. They don't have interviews because they have so many kids applying. So that's your opportunity to stand out. But really at any campus, even with the schools that have letters of recommendation, that's your opportunity to stand out. That's your opportunity to make your statement. So looking at that in advance is something that would be beneficial for juniors to start to look at it, especially over the summer. And we help with that. For rising seniors, we do offer 2 application boot camps. We listened to some parents who last year who felt like, you know, their students got a lot out of it, but maybe one more day. So we're adding one more day, and a lot of the focus is going to be on the writing parts. We do walk them through the Common Application, and the UC application won't be open at this point, but we're going to give them a lot of guidance on the things that we know students struggle with when they do the UC application, so that it'll be easy for them when it comes time. But we really want to focus on the writing part, and we also want to add college admissions reps as part of that experience for students, so they can be talking directly to the people on the other side of the table in this process.
Is this limited to only Chaminade
Only
students?
rising seniors, only
Chaminade
Chaminade students.
Thank you.
All right, so I'll invite the other counselors to come out to help answer questions, but yes.
We are a multicultural family, and one of my sons is very interested in going to university in Europe or going abroad. Do any of the, I mean, obviously U.S. is big enough to keep you guys busy, but do you have one counselor on your team that is familiar with that process or that can assist with that particularly?
Yeah, study abroad while in college or go abroad initially?
He wants to actually go to college abroad. I am trying to change it to take a year or a semester abroad. But
Yeah, both of
it's
them.
also a money thing. You know, the kids are online and they hear about how expensive college is. And you can go to Finland for free. And
There are a lot of really lowered rates in different countries.
Right.
The UK has really competitive rates when it comes to some of their best schools.
Right.
Usually the most popular are English-speaking nations, Australia, UK, Canada. Canada has some really amazing schools that go overlooked for people in the United States. There's a lot of options available. When you shift to the British system, sometimes the admission process gets a little bit more complicated because of the testing, the emphasis on testing. And we can talk about that in detail individually because it's a really targeted conversation.
Yeah. Is there one of you though that
We
kind of
don't.
handles those cases?
No,
or-
we all handle our own caseload and
Right.
share with each other what we know as a village. So I had a student one year who only wanted Canadian and UK schools, so I kind of learned a lot working with her from sophomore to senior year. And then this year, I started with a student that Mrs. Cuneo took over that only wanted UK schools, so we've been working with that. So Mr. Johnson has had his own experience in the past with a lot of international.
Yeah, I've had dozens and dozens of kids
So
go.
we don't just stay in our offices, we're always communicating with one another.
And then studying abroad while in college, it's awesome. I studied abroad, my wife studied abroad, it's great. In many situations, the change in tuition, do other people study abroad? Yeah, it's awesome. In many cases, there is no change in tuition. You carry your tuition, you carry your financial aid over. Sometimes there's a little bit of a bump like, oh, we charge $3,000 extra on top of your tuition for plane tickets, for this experience, for these fees. But in many cases, the finances are very, very similar, and the experience is amazing. And again, there's different ways of doing that through the college. Sometimes they run them very efficiently through their own system. In other cases, it's a pure exchange where you're just going to another university and you're kind of thrown into their system. And so, again, when students get interested in that, sometimes the colleges that they end up at will have way more resources about their specific programs than we do, but we can talk a lot about generalities, a lot about cool things that we've done to kind of get them excited about traveling and seeing the world.
I apologize if I missed this. ACT and SAT prep, and I apologize because you might have already said this. Do you offer a program at Chaminade that helps prepare the kids? If not, what do you recommend? I have an athlete. I'm a little confused. This is my first athlete. They're telling her, the schools that she's talking to, the D3 schools, that they want the test score now. Like, she's a rising junior. She's only a sophomore. And they're saying, we want the score now. And she hasn't finished the classes. Like, if you're an honors pre-cal, how do you take the ACT knowing that calculus is on the whole process isn't making sense to me. You're not through the classes that you need to be successful on the ACT, but John Hopkins is saying, I want your score. So what advice do you give a student like that?
I think for a lot of the athletes, they want the scores if they're at a point to take those tests. I work with a lot of athletes. I was an athlete myself. I went through the whole process, played in college, and they're not asking you to take it before you're prepared. They're just saying, once you have it, we'd love to see it. Because for their recruiting purposes, especially more of the higher end schools, they gotta start planning ahead. They only have a certain amount of slots based off of GPAs and test scores. For them, it's really important because they gotta see, should we be recruiting this one, should we recruit this one? But if they're not ready to take the test, they should not be taking that test. That's not something you wanna push ahead and just hope for the best just because you have a college coach saying, oh, we'd like to see your score.
So
That's
do you
not gonna
suggest,
make or break.
do you have a prep, like do you suggest Kaplan? I know there's a lot of them up there.
We have, through the Center of Excellence, we started offering SAT prep this year for the first time. It's extremely reasonably priced versus the things out there. We don't endorse any company in particular, just because we haven't gone through the program, and we also, again, are always keeping finances in mind, and they can be really expensive. In addition, a lot of them start with prep and then say, hey, now buy our college counseling package, and some are good and some fly in the face of a lot of the things that we're trying to do with our kids. So that being said, there are really, really great online resources that are free. Khan Academy in particular, for anything College Board related, they are
KAHN.
KHAN. They partner with College Board. Sal Khan went to College Board and partnered with him. Everything's free, and it's absolutely a great resource. When the SAT changed over, some of you have heard this story, but when the SAT changed over for the class of 2017, I asked one of my seniors, hey, before you go out and buy test prep, can you just try using Khan Academy for this first SAT, because no one really knows what's on it yet. So give it a try, and he did, and he got a 1380, and he walked away from the SAT. So, it's a very good resource. Also, the library purchases for us Schmoop, and so that's free to our students, and they have all test prep, APs, ACT. Mr. Borchert is...
Here are the forms, like this gives you the magic word, I believe they call it, to get access to everything. So if you or your kid wants to do it, this is where you can pick it up. It's right here if you guys want to grab one before you leave.
And we feel strongly about that. We've watched our kids use it.
They're like practice tests?
Yep. Yeah, like the College Board, the Khan Academy has, I want to say, 4 to 6 full diagnostic tests that they can take. And then it prepares a practice program for them based on how they did on the diagnostic. So they can take the diagnostic, do the practice program, take another diagnostic, and just continue to try to improve in that way.
I know you guys are a great Chaminade counseling group, and my son has Mr. Bonchuk, who's been really great, but I also have parents who have older children who've gone through the process and who've hired private college counselors. So just curious as to what your take on that is as an approach.
Yeah, I mean, it's something like what Mrs. Gallen was referring to earlier. You're going to come across some that, yeah, are great, you know. We've also come across a lot that give a lot of information contrary to what we're saying. So it can make it challenging. The other problem is that when you're using outside counselors, they're very limited on what they can do for that student. They can work with them on their list. They can give you advice when it comes to that. But really, that's about it. They can't write it. What's that?
They help them with their essay.
They help them with their essay and whatnot. They can't write the letter of rec or anything. That's still something that we have to do. And so it's really important that even if you are deciding to, which we don't believe that you need to, but if you are deciding to, it's still important to keep us in the loop. We've all had students that work with these outside counselors come back and they've gotten wrong advice. They're way behind on what they need to be doing. And it's detrimental to the kid sometimes. So we don't feel that it's necessary because that's what we're here for. You know, and I can speak for myself, like there were some seniors I met with 18 times in the fall. And that's what they needed, and that's what I'm going to do. And we can all attest that, you know, we're there to help the kids in any way we can.
And sometimes they have the kids keep all their information on their own program, but we need everything on Naviance for us to do our job correctly. So all of a sudden, you know, we'll open Naviance and say, you still only have 3 schools on your list. Oh, well, my list is on this program. And you know, we say, oh, you have to, you know, get it over to our list. And then they never do it. And they're spending so much time with that counselor that they're not with us, who's going to write the letter of recommendation and need to forge that relationship with them and have that information. Also, it's just a lot of money, and I feel like we are a full-service counseling office, but it's also a thing. And I've literally had parents say, well, I just want the battle out of my home. So if somebody's going to come and sit with my student and make them do these things and watch them do their applications, then that's what I'm paying for. So, you know, that is what it is. We're not going to come to your homes.
Why not?
But you know, it's just a matter of, you know, if we can be on the same page with that counselor, that's the best case scenario. So if they can, you know, if they can be making sure the list is on Naviance, and you know that they can be encouraging the student to also check in with us as well and keep us updated, that's the best case scenario. It just doesn't happen often. Any other questions? I think it's
Subject test. Can you just elaborate a little bit on subject test? Explain. I just can't remember. You take an AP, then you take the test. When do you sign up? And if you get a 3, not a 4 or 5, do you feel you submitted to a school, like a high-end school?
so.
Yeah, sure, I'll do it.
Okay.
So subject tests are a little bit of an in-between area. It used to be like super demanding, everyone needed them. And then colleges kind of pulled back and said, oh, you don't really need subject tests, only if you need to prove yourself in some way. A lot of homeschool students use subject tests really heavily because they feel like they need to validate the A that they got from their mom in their house. And some students that maybe said, oh, I loved world history. Like I loved world history, but I wasn't in AP world history. They're like, well, I need the subject test to prove something that isn't already there. But we've noticed recently that a lot of the top-end schools are saying, actually, subject tests, turns out that they are good. We want to see a few of them. We want to see how they're doing in these different areas. And so we're kind of suggesting for some of our top-end students to have subject tests to supplement some other stuff. And one of the reasons why we want these subject tests is because AP scores are not used to really evaluate students. AP tests are supposed to be just good. They're supposed to be taking the tests, and if they do well, then it adds to their record. And so if they get a 3, that's good, that's great. You know, if they get a 4 or 5, that's even better, but someone that gets a 5 and someone that gets a 3, that's not a huge weight in terms of their evaluation. What is going to be a huge weight is the grade that they get in that class. And if you do want to show and demonstrate how great they are in a subject, then the subject test is a better marker for that than the AP test.
So you suggest every class you take an AP and you take the subject test just to take it?
I would suggest, I mean, if you were trying to submit 9 subject tests because you took a full load of APs here, that is not a good idea. I would say that if you have again, you're trying to show something that maybe isn't there, show something about the student. So if they're great at English and history, then maybe take some of those subject tests to balance out kind of what they're good at and what they like. And in some situations, like engineering schools, they're going to have very set requirements of you need math 2, and these are some of the scores that you can look at and what you need to do to get into this type of
So
program.
if you get a 3 and you get a 3 in AP Bio and you're going to be a biochem major, do you send the 3?
We tell them to, and the colleges tell them to as well.
Really?
A lot of students don't.
No, I
feel like it's too, like, oh, I'm admitting defeat. The colleges tell us that they want the score submitted. We tell them what the colleges tell us, but sometimes the students don't submit it. But because it's optional, there's no, like, it's not.
So you say submit it.
We say submit it because the colleges say submit it.
And the APs, they're mostly used for placement, not acceptance. You know, a lot of the APs are being taken as a senior year, and they've already been accepted or not. It's really about, you know, a college will say, if you get a 5, you don't have to take your first level of history or something like that.
So, one more question regarding that. Do the colleges look at your grade for AP courses?
Yes, that's very important.
Absolutely.
So that's more
That's-
important than the test.
Oh, 1,000% more important. It is very, very important, and the AP test can almost not even matter.
And kids are stressing about the test more than the class.
There are huge advantages to passing the test, but they're advantages that kind of come in the future.
So let's say you got an E in the class, but on the test you got a 2 or 3. So does that?
I pat the kid on the back and say you were successful in the class.
Yeah, you know, I see people wanting to leave, and it's 9 o'clock, so I want to be very conscientious of your time. Thank you so much for coming out, and we're here to answer your questions.
Well, no, she had just said something about taking an AP and a subject matter test, because I was just looking online. They're scheduled so that you can't take them both at the same time. If you're doing the June test in a class, you can only take the AP or the subject matter, and you can't take, that's the way I look at it.
The subject tests? The subject tests are on the same days as the SAT test, not the AP exams. The AP exams take place in the middle of the week during the school day, and subject tests